I'm Dan at HValley Tools, and we're going to talk about something that we get questions on a lot, which is spiral bits, spiral upcut, spiral downcut, and compression bits, and which situation is appropriate to use those bits. So, first one, we'll talk about a spiral upcut bit. So, what this is essentially doing is, as this is spinning in your router, it's pulling material up and out of the material. It's pulling the chips up and out of the material. So this is the thing that's most popular with CNCs, especially because you have dust collection on the CNCs. So you want those chips to come up out of the material so that it can get sucked up by the dust collection and not get everywhere. It's most common for just general cutting. The thing that is really nice about the spiral part is that you're going to get a very clean cut. It's slicing the material as it's coming up. It's not just a straight bit where it's just hogging it out, and it's a less brute force kind of a cut. What's really nice is that these are just workhorses because of the spiral action. It's slicing. It's not really dulling these bits as quickly as like a straight bit would. And this is really good for just general CNC work, but handheld router as well. I will always lean towards a spiral bit if I have it, if I had the choice between this and a straight bit, just because this is always going to perform better and give you a cleaner cut. So these are available. It's really not much to it outside of the fact that occasionally you're going to get some fuzzy furrings and everything on the top of the surface. So if you think about it, it's pulling the material up. So if you have a laminate material, if you have a plywood or something like that, it's going to want to tug at that top layer of laminate and pull it away from the core. So occasionally you could get some tear out, you could get some fuzzy, and if you've ever had to do this, you generally have to sand that down to get a clean surface. It still may be very clean, but just keep in mind that that's something that's potential. On the reverse side, you go to a spiral downcut bit. So as this is spinning, it's actually pushing material down into the material. So it's still going to be able to be extracted when you're doing shallow cuts. This is great for things like hinge mortars. Obviously, this is a giant bit. So if you're doing even smaller ones, a smaller spiral downcut, this is when you want a really, really clean line on the surface that you're pretty much plunging into. So for something like a hinge mortise, something where you want a really crisp line because you want the hinge to like kind of kiss that laminate on all sides, the downcut bit is really the way to go. It skips the step of having to sand it, but also you get a really, really crisp, clean line. You don't want to go too shallow with these because if you can imagine this, especially a bit of this size, this half inch, 3/8 inch type of bit, it's taking all this material and pushing it down. So as you're traveling through, if you go too low, eventually that material is not going to have anywhere to go, and it can get a little messy and it can bog down a little bit. You don't want to do this if you're cutting through material, and going below, a half inch or even shallower than that, especially on a CNC. If you want a clean line, this will do it, but I wouldn't go too deep on this. And then you have kind of a marriage between the two, which is a compression bit. And this one kind of confuses people a little bit because there are little caveats on how to use these. So it looks a little different. It has kind of a separate section on the top here. So what this is doing is this is pushing material towards the middle of the bit as you're doing it. So this is most ideal for, say, a laminate that has pre-finished sides on both top and bottom, and you're cutting it. That means that as you're plunging down and then you start moving the bit around, it's pulling material up so you won't get tear out or blowout on the bottom side, and then you won't get tear out on the top side either because it's pushing it back into the material. You can still do dust collection on these. Chips are still going to be flying, out of the the path of travel that you've already passed through. But these are really great when you want a super clean cut, especially a through cut on something like pre-finished plywood. So these are kind of in the specialty bit category, just because if you don't have that situation, these aren't going to do. I mean, they're still going to cut, but you're not going to get the true performance of this that it was intended to. The the thing with this is that you also have to plunge deep enough into this so that you get the change in direction of the spirals. So if you were to just kind of, because there's compression on the bottom of the bit, it's pulling the chips up. So if you were to just kind of kiss the top of a plywood in a CNC or on a handheld router, this would be pulling chip up, and it would act like a spiral upcut bit. If you plunge really far down, you pretty much get that compression. So you need to go deeper than where you see the change in that spiral. But this also gives you a super clean cut, especially when you're going all the way through plywood and you're trying to do some production work and you're trying to get through it in one pass. This is a perfect bit for that. And again, because these are all made here, these are all high quality bits, and these are going to last you a long time, especially because these still have that slicing motion with the spiral configuration. So all these are available in store. They're available on HValleytools.com, and come on in.